Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fiction genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season premiere of Once Upon a Time. A fantastic season premiere. It's so good. Okay, so immediately we start off like picking up, actually even now it's taking a little bit after season 7, like it seems like it's been a couple years because you have Henry being slightly older. Apparently he's finished up high school. Not really sure where he was in season 7, like education wise, but there's definitely some time skip. And like Henry goes off on his own because everyone's got their happy endings after season 7, but the fact of the matter is season 6. Sorry, I apologize. Did I say 7 twice? Season 6. Basically after everything, everyone's got their happy endings except he doesn't have his own place. It's like, as the author, he's just trying to find his place, his own story where he belongs, because everyone except for him has a place in the story, because Emma herself, being one of the children of Snow White and Prince Charming, being the savior and everything. So obviously she has a place in the story. But obviously I think it comes down to the fact that Henry's an author, so he doesn't have a place to really fit in the story. It's just kind of like, I guess it's almost like if you break it down, kind of like you can't be in your own story type of thing. I don't know. So basically left to different realms to find his own story. And it's something he kind of alludes to at the beginning. It's like when he's talking to Regina about how there's all these different worlds. There's this place that has its own version of like Snow White. There's all this and that, because he ends up meeting Cinderella, who's also Jacinda is her name, under the curse and everything. I was like, is she pretending to be Cinderella? I was like, oh no, this isn't the Enchanted Forest. This is a different realm. So every realm has its own story, because he also meets Alice, which he's like, the one from Wonderland. She's like, oh, that's all anyone ever knows me from. I've been to other places, because the fact of the matter is the show, there was that spin-off show, Alice, that had Alice in it, that was connected Once Upon a Time in Wonderland. I kind of blinked on the title for a second there, so I do apologize. So there's that. So I was wondering how they were going to do it, and plus we already know Cinderella because we met her in the original story, but this is like a different book. It's like a different story. Everything's kind of labeled. It's like, oh, this is a new beginning. So it's just I was wondering how they were going to handle that. And it seems like they're handling it in a very interesting way of it's almost like, I guess, arguably almost like a multi-dimensional type of thing. It's like, they're the fairy tales that we know so well. And then here's other versions of those fairy tales. It's like this universe has this version of them, while this other realm, we've known the Enchanted Forest version of these stories. Now let's go to other realms, which I haven't really been given names, but still. Because for instance, Cinderella in this, she's not off to meet the prince. It's like, oh yeah, get married and happily ever after. It's like, no, she's trying to kill the prince, actually, because he destroyed her family, essentially. Hell, you even have her stealing Henry's bike from him by knocking him. I was like, oh, teach me how to ride a bike and everything. Oh, do you know how my story ends? Oh, wow, that's crazy. And then punches him and then leaves him. So, cause what I really like about this too, this whole thing, obviously it's kind of it's almost like they took season 1 and they rebooted it in a sense. Cause obviously it's like a new story, but also a new retelling of season 1. Except things go down a lot heavier than I feel like they did in the original season, the original story with Emma trying to believe Henry, which is so weird because Henry was the one that's always had the biggest amount of belief, and now for him not to believe, it's just, yes, he's under the curse and everything, but it's still kind of interesting. And I feel things between him and Lucy are very different than him and Emma, because I think it just stems from that, because the fact of the matter is, because he is the one that believes. Even Lucy's like, you always believe, and the fact is that he doesn't believe. It just messes with her. I mean, the question is, I'm curious about is, why does she remember everything? Because she doesn't have a book like Henry does. Someone reminded me last season when I was talking about season 6, because I almost completely forgot. I was like, where did Henry get the book? All right, he originally got it from Mary Margaret, Snow White. So Lucy doesn't have anyone to give her a book like that, not less. I don't know, because in this world, that whole Arthur aspect of Henry is transitioned over to being an actual legitimate job of him being an author. He actually wrote a book that's essentially the first 6 seasons of the show. So that's kind of interesting, but he can't write anything else, because I mean, his other adventures he doesn't remember, because the way it seems like, just the way like the conversation you have with Alice, he's like, "There's people in danger who need help. I help them." It seems like he's probably been bouncing around from different place to different place. Like I'm curious to see like will we really get like it's something I brought up during the season finale. Like I'm curious to see like will we get a big look after like in between the time skips, especially because it seems like obviously Henry's kind of taking main stage as main protagonist and everything. So I'm curious to see like will we kind of get a look at those years between him leaving Storybrooke to go to other realms or what, you know? Does seem like him and Cinderella kind of make quite the team. Them sword fighting those guards and everything like that. Side note, her mom, well, stepmom, Victoria, played by Gabrielle Anwar. I was so upset with myself earlier because I was like, oh yeah, I'm from Bird Notice. She played, it finally hit me, but I was so mad at myself for not remembering. You know, she's Fiona from, Bird Notice. She's done other stuff, but that's the thing I know her best from. I was like, I saw her name, I was like, that's so cool. But man, like she really plays the wicked stepmother up in this to the point that she cut off the wings of Cinderella's fairy godmother and ended up killing her. I was like, that's pretty brutal. Once again, though, I don't like. Obviously, there's a lot of the original like fairy tales and grim tales that obviously have a lot darker twists and tellings, which, you know, Once Upon a Time kind of plays upon that. But that was just kind of like, I am not familiar with the original Cinderella. I think I heard little bits about it, but I don't remember any exacts. Side note, I don't know who the actress is that plays her daughter. Her daughter / assistant in the Cursed World. But it's like, the actress who plays her daughter seems so familiar, and I just can't place her. I feel like I've seen her face somewhere before, and it's going to bother me. Which is actually kind of sad when you actually think about the whole, like, Cinderella and him thing, because that also means that him and Violet never worked out. It's like, oh, that's kind of sad. Like, all that, like, oh, I mean, to be fair, it's like, relationships in general, they're, you know, they come and go, you know, you're not always going to be with the same person. But I was thinking on some level, I was like, oh, maybe, oh, no, sadly not. So, but I love this whole situation because I feel like they've changed, like, it's the whole dynamic kind of shifted. Because obviously with Emma and everything took place, she was originally in New York and everything, but now it's like Henry's in Seattle. But also, like, there's this place called Hyperion Heights, which is kind of interesting because I don't, like, it's going to bother me. I actually don't remember what place Storybrooke actually was, like what state or what city. Like for some reason in my head I'm thinking Maine, but I'm confusing that with Haven. That's what I think that, but maybe it wasn't. I don't remember. Like, remind me what place, like city or state or whatever was Storybrooke actually over? Have they ever mentioned what? I think they have. I don't think it's in New York, but maybe it is. Maybe it's on the more countryside of New York. But I mean, it's just so interesting because it's like, obviously, like I said, going back to it, it's like, oh, it took place here in this, Emma was in New York and then she had to go all the way to Storybrooke, this small town. It's like, no, this is like relatively close to where Henry lives in a certain regard. So it's just kind of interesting that like it all like, instead of it being Storybrooke, which I'm curious, will we ever get Storybrooke at all this season? But it's all here. The curse is taking place here, which is interesting, like, because it's like, I don't know. It's just the new location and everything. It's just kind of interesting to me, and seeing Victoria's angle in it, which I'm curious. Like, is it like the whole Gold and Regina situation? Does she know, or does she not? I mean, gosh, like I keep thinking about her, and it's just like, man, she is like really despicable. Like she quickly rose to some like evil queen status, especially considering the fact is what makes it worse too is she rose to evil by her own hand. She didn't even have magic. I'm sure it might be one of those situations where they kind of go like, oh, well, she became evil this way, because that's one cool thing about this show is it dives into why villains became villains in the first place, with the exception of certain villains. I don't think they ever really dove into why Hades is the way he is. I think that was kind of like family issues, essentially. It's kind of what it alluded to. Cruella was always anyway, so like there was no like, oh, redeeming her story. It's like, nope, she was kind of always like that. But nevertheless, I'm curious to see, will they make it so that she was always like this or what? Because it's interesting too, because she loves her daughter so much, yet her daughter is like her assistant in this world or something like that. I wonder, are they actually even related in this world? Because obviously the curse like messes your memories and stuff like that. Because it's even got Henry believing it's like, no, I had a wife and daughter, but they died in a fire. I'm like, that's brutal. Who puts a memory together like that? That's sad. Emma never knew about like her past and everything. I mean, to be fair, she was a baby and everything. But to compensate, I guess to keep his mind so caught up in the curse, they gave it a tragic backstory so he wouldn't go looking for a family or something like that. I was like, that's super, super messed up. And I brought her up earlier, but obviously Regina, we see her running a bar. Her name's Ronnie, and it's just like, not willing to back down to Victoria because Victoria's trying to buy her bar and everything. She's like, yeah, but the moment Jacinda kind of gave me courage, kind of inspired me, so I'm not going to back down. You want my bar? Well, you're not going to have it that easily. And it's just like basically saying that they won't go, she can pretend like she runs things around here, but like she won't kind of take things without a fight, essentially. It's like, that's Regina for you. Regina doesn't back down from any fight. I'm like, it's so cool. Then not even just her, you also have Rumpel playing this character named Weaver, which interestingly enough, he's the one that actually sent Alice after Henry in the past, because he's like, oh yeah, like, Rumpel's kept an eye on his grandson, obviously. He kind of alludes to the fact that, she kind of alludes to the fact is that basically when you mess with other people's stories, things get a little weird. Because the fact of the matter is, by the time Henry like got into the lives of all these like fairy tale characters and stuff like that, there's stories that already played out and they were still kind of playing out. And it's like, he helped kind of realize their endings like the way they're supposed to be and everything like that. But he never I guess arguably he never directly interfered with a story that was kind of outside of his own. He had a connection to that story, that he ended up quote unquote writing his book about and everything. But this story is kind of outside of his realm. So it's basically like, you keep doing that, you mess with other people's stories, there will be ramifications for it. So, I mean, like right off the bat, we're hit with so many mysteries of like, why did this happen? Like, because obviously periodically throughout the season we're going to be cutting back, because it's so interesting, because it's like I said, it's so similar to the first season, yet it's not like they copied it like word for word, paste everything. It's like, no, new setting, new circumstances, because for one, you have Regina on your side this time. So, but also the fact of the matter is that Henry's directly involved in this scenario. Like, because before, like, Emma didn't know anything about the other world. Like, the curse didn't affect her in that sense because she didn't grow up knowing that life. But in this world, Henry grew up knowing that world, and now it's like wiped from his memories. I'm curious to know, like, what his background is. Like, what about his mom and stuff like that? Like, I mean, Regina's name is obviously changed because it's Ronnie, and because the fact is he still has his last name Mills. It doesn't seem like he knows anything about Emma, his actual biological mom. Like, if she we still don't know where she stands in all of this. So, but it's so sad because I feel like things hit an even more emotional state in this season, because you have Lucy like, come on, believe me, please, and like almost like you almost see it makes you almost sad because it's like Henry won't believe her that much. It's like, I guess because it's been such a long time since I saw the first season, so it's just kind of like, I don't know. I felt like this season's hitting you even hard. I guess once again, going back to what I've said prior, it's like because it's Henry, because Henry's the one that always believed. Emma always had a hard time believing. Things kind of stacked up against her to kind of make it hard for her to believe. But Henry's always believed ever since he was a kid. That's what made him so special. So now for him, out of anyone not believing this little girl, where she's like, you're my dad, you're married to Cinderella, my mom, and everything. And it's just, I don't know, it's sad because like Henry obviously doesn't want to get involved in everything, to the point, he ended up kind of ratting Jacinda out, which she kind of got pissed at him because it's like, yeah, you got what you want. You got your car back and everything, which I'm surprised Henry didn't think anything of it. It's like, oh yeah, I just happened to get my car back after helping Victoria, because she's trying to claim custody of Lucy. So it makes you wonder, does Lucy have the same abilities? I forgot to, I keep letting it slip my mind. We did see a little taste of this in season 6's finale, because like, Henry was trying to protect her and everything, that was before, it was cutting back and forth between the final battle and everything in this. So, and I mean, and to that point, so we kind of already saw the end results. We still just need to fill in the beginning, middle, and then what led up to that end result, so. Because I don't think it's Victoria that actually set everything up. I don't think it's her. She might be a key component in this, but it seems like there might be someone else behind the scenes. Like, it's been, like, I forgot, like, exactly what went down during those, like, I guess, arguably fast forward bits, like, time skip bits of season six's finale. So man, we probably I forgot. Like, I think you got to see them, what is essentially going to be the main antagonist of this season, but I don't remember. There's also other aspects I'm curious about too, because it's like, let's not forget Rumple's also a dad too. So it's like, will Gideon play any role in this? I mean, because truth be told, it's been a couple years. So Henry's like roughly 28. So it's been what, maybe like 10ish years. So Gideon would be like a kid himself, probably roughly about the same age probably Henry was when this all started, back in first season stuff. Like, maybe that's what I'm guessing, but it does seem like the glamour, the curse is kind of waning a little bit, because Henry goes to visit his wife and child, assume their graves, but then it's like, whoa, wasn't there a cemetery here? And the lady's like, no, there's never been, not as long as I've been living here. And it's like, so the curse and spell is slowly coming loose because of Lucy, plus other factors meeting and kind of hitting things off with Yacinda. I mean, granted, things kind of took a turn because of the whole him kind of backstabbing her a little bit. And even Killian, who we saw pop up, which I'll get to in a second, was even trying to defend him by being like, he was just trying to help and everything. So, which it's so interesting that we see him as a cop, which is interesting considering the fact is that, Emma became sheriff and everything. So that's just kind of interesting to me that Killian, I mean, also considering the fact is that Killian is who he is a bad guy, but granted, he could turn things around and became a good guy. I mean, it's so interesting because, Henry is so close to both his mom, one of his moms, as well as his stepfather, which is kind of interesting because it's actually kind of interesting when you break it down like that, because, Cinderella has like a super evil stepmother, whereas Henry has like a stepfather who's kind of an evil pirate who turned into a cool dude. I mean, which the fact of it is, we know Killian's story. He wasn't always a bad guy. Things took a bad turn, when it came family life and stuff like that. So obviously he's not a bad guy, but I mean, he was for a while, but then he turned things around. So it's interesting seeing him being a cop and everything, which, like I said, kind of fits Emma being the sheriff and everything. But it seems like things are kind of working on him a little bit too. Like the curse is wearing off because he's looking in a book and he stops at a page that has Emma's face. And I'm like, it's there. And then also Rumple ends up becoming his new partner, which is weird. Like, does that mean he's always been a cop? Which he has to have some kind of connection to Victoria for things to kind of, because I feel like Victoria's the one that has all the power in this situation. So it's like, for that to be set up like that, because Weaver's he's trying to keep a close eye on everything because, like, Killian got like a promotion and everything. And like, just like that, impressing her. So I'm guessing like, she's essentially wants to have someone close by that she can rely on and do her bidding for her, which Killian's not like that, because even he's kind of, because all the other cops are kind of not wanting to do anything when Henry's car gets stolen, but like Killian was like, okay, mate, I'll help you out, so that hero is shining through a little bit. So I'm very interested to see what new faces that we come across, as well as old faces. Like I said, we got introduced to a few this time, but also like, who's the one that set up that whole portal home for him before, he ended up finding out Cinderella was gone because her slipper was left behind. So, I would assume either his mom or Rumple, especially because Rumple was telling him to get home. So, I mean, I brought it up earlier, but that is a question, like, what is Storybrooke's state like in this regard? Like, is it there? Were they affected by the curse or what? You would assume so. Well, the fact of the matter is that everyone else that's mixed into Henry's life, like essentially his family is here and not just in Storybrooke and him getting trailed all the way back to Storybrooke. So that must say a lot about maybe Storybrooke isn't there anymore after whatever went down. Because it seemed like in some regards, it seemed like probably Henry never came back home. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know. I mean, like a lot of this is just, speculation because we don't know. We just have to wait to see like the past events kind of unfold with each episode to find out, what exactly went down. I'm also curious because they do the whole like savior thing being 28 and everything like this. And I think I might have brought this up during the season finale, but it's like, how's that going to work with Henry? Because Henry's going to be like doubly that. I mean, he is the child of a savior, plus he's an author or two. So I'm curious to see how that works out for him. Like, I mean, granted, outside of like everything that's happening, he doesn't really use his author abilities because, I mean, it's too much power for one person to have. Because, I mean, we saw what happened with Isaac. Which the question is, what about him? We haven't seen him since like last season when everything kind of was going down and he was leaving because he was like, yeah, the ultimate battle is about to happen. So Mike might end up coming across him in some shape or form. That'd be kind of interesting. I feel like this season, because we still need to dive. I feel like there's still an aspect of Henry we haven't dived into too much because it's a part of himself that, oh yeah, it's there and it's a part of him, but it's not something that really dive into because once again, it's too much power to really dive into. So he tries to avoid using it, I'm sure. So why he kind of learns how to rely on other skills and stuff like that. But the fact is he doesn't have like magic like Emma because he isn't really a savior, not unless it ends up becoming like that. I don't know. I think like ultimately his like part in all this fixing everything will come down to his ability as an author, not actually as a savior. So maybe in this regard, when you're one, you can't be the other. So if you're a savior, you can't be an author. If you're an author, you can't be a savior. Or maybe because they kind of act one in the same, you know, it's a little, don't get caught up in the details, essentially, maybe that type of thing. I don't know. Like I said, brought up, I feel like it's going to be a lot harder to convince Henry out of anybody because Emma was kind of stubborn when it came to the whole believing thing too. So, I mean, Henry has the book in a certain regard, but I mean, it's not his actual book. It's the book he wrote, or maybe like this actually is the book that Henry had before, but now it got transformed into this. I'm curious, did he actually take it with him or did he leave it? Would he feel the need to take the book with him? I don't know. I feel like he would because, I mean, there's so many important stories there. You know, maybe a reminder of his family and stuff while he's off on his own and everything. I mean, I don't know. Oh, yeah, there was also that thing with Cinderella, too. Like, the fact that she was kind of telling her boss off in the episode. And she's like, that's the truth. And, like, she wouldn't back down from it. Which makes it... Like, I'm curious, is that supposed to represent, like, is she known for not, like, telling lies or something like that? Like, she's not going to apologize for telling the truth or something, which is sad. Like, she ultimately had to apologize at the end because it's like, she needs to do whatever she can to keep, you know, Lucy without losing her to Victoria. Which I guess ultimately you can look at the whole situation with Henry interfering like that as a good thing. Because if he hadn't interfered and if Victoria hadn't found Lucy and her, it would have gotten a lot worse for Jacinda. It probably would have been a situation of like there'll probably be a lot more legal action involved and it would have turned super ugly. Because things kind of got ugly when it came to Regina, Emma, and Henry, you know, so. Like I said, a fantastic season premiere. It's got me so excited to see how the rest of this plays out. I'm so fascinated to see what they do with this season because most everything I've seen of this so far has been mainly stuff from this particular episode. At least that I remember. It's been a while since I saw the trailer that came out at Comic-Con, so I don't know. I'm very interested to see what goes on this season. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.